Hello, everyone. We would like to welcome you to the Sister Cypher. Big shout out to Professor Griff. Once again, thank you for allowing us to do the Sister Cypher. We want to thank everyone for chiming in every Tuesday and Thursday. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and share. We thank you for joining us once again. And once again, here we are, another victim of a police shooting. So tonight I want to talk about Atatiana Jefferson. And for those who have not been keeping up with the news, she's a young Black 28-year-old pre-med student who's actually going to be entering into medical school. So she graduated from Xavier University in New Orleans, Louisiana. And so on the other night, she was basically inside of her Fort Worth home, and her neighbor, James Smith, basically he saw her door open. And so what he did, he was concerned and he wanted to make sure that she was okay. So he called he basically called for a welfare check, and basically he wanted to make sure that she was concerned. Unfortunately, the Fort Worth police showed up, as they do, guns blazing, and so she was ultimately shot. The officer was a white male who, to this day, has not been named as who he is, his background, and what have you. All they basically stated was that he was on an administrative leave, and it was pending an investigation. And they basically said that he had been on the force since April of 2018, which is not really long. And so basically what happened was her neighbor, James Smith, called the non-emergency number. And I'm going to repeat that. He called a non-emergency number, just basically so that somebody can go check on her, because her door was opened and he didn't really see any movement inside. And he said that it was unlike her to leave her door open. And so basically, these officers came in, looked through the window, and within 3 seconds, he shot one bullet and basically killed her. And so this is so unfortunate because, again, this is a young, talented, educated Black woman, and she was on her way to becoming a doctor. And so since June 1st, Fort Worth Police Department has killed 6, and with Atatiana Jefferson, this is going to be 7 people since June 1st. We're only in the month of October. It's only the 14th. And basically, again, we have another fallen sister, and we have to come to terms to what is happening to our community. We are ultimately at war, a covert war. And we have to talk about these issues because, again, they're not just attacking our Black men, but they're attacking our women and our children. And as a Black man or woman, for that matter, you should be very concerned about this. And I just looked at the body cam, the video that they have floating around, and this officer did not give her an opportunity to even respond. And so he also, hey, Carrie, if you can, just please mute your mic for us. And so ultimately what he did was he murdered a young woman. And so I want to get your take on it, ladies, because, again, this shouldn't have happened. And this is cold-blooded murder. And ultimately, as you know, it's going to be another hashtag. It's going to be another story. In another couple of weeks, you're going to hear about somebody else getting killed. And we as a community, we have to face the facts. And we have to come up to a resolve about this and how we're going to handle the police. So ladies, please, if you can, say hello to the chat room, introduce yourselves, and give me your take on Atatiana Jefferson being killed by the Fort Worth Police Department.
Peace chat, Alex Little here, Sirius Mindz family, what's up? Professor Griff, thank you for this opportunity again. Peace to Soleil and congratulations on your Encoded album. This is a very touchy topic. Peace, Quan, peace, Carrie. What I want to say is Atatiana Jefferson, rest in peace. There's several things wrong. You know, number one, she was fatally shot. Again, excessive force. Number two, she was 28 years young. I had no idea that she was in medical school. Not that it makes a difference, but it shows that this is a whole different caliber of a mind frame. She was going somewhere. Number three, was there a child in the house? Because that's a whole other issue. That's a whole other issue. So those three things I hope we can talk about. In addition to her neighbor, James Smith, he's going to need therapy to appropriately handle this mentally, emotionally, and socially, because we're almost so neutralized, especially the Black male, in this racist white supremacist structure. The white man has almost made it impossible for the Black figurehead to be that checker upper on thy neighbor. So when he did feel it was necessary to call the non-emergency phone number to say, hey, I'm concerned, the door's open, check and see if the sister is okay. I bet in a million years he never thought that they would shoot her from a perceived threat of movement through a window. So there's gonna have to be some accountability. I think that law enforcement needs more socio-cultural training. People are gonna have to become comfortable in their profession. And if you've only been on the force since 2018, that's a year. Why such excessive force to where there's fatal treatment? She could have got shot in the leg. She could have got shot in the hand. If a police officer felt threatened, I just don't understand why our Black women and men are being gunned down on a regular basis without any accountability. If the body cam took footage, what is this fella's name and why is he getting paid while there's time off?
Absolutely. We're going to dig deep into all of your questions for sure, because I want to know the same things. You know, I want to know, why are they withholding his personal information? Because clearly, if this would have been a civilian killing a police officer, I'm quite sure we would know everything about this person, including their family. So I do want to dig deeper into this, but first I want to give Carrie an opportunity to give us her feedback. What's going on, Carrie?
Hi, good evening. Blessings, everyone. Thank you. I'm also with Alex. My concern is the trauma that comes with it. She was playing video games. That's what I read, with her nephew or relative. And we also have to take into consideration, this is why people of color don't trust the police officers at all. They come and they kill us for no apparent reason. He went in there, he did not identify himself to let her know that he was there to do a wellness check. So we are being looked at as targets and being killed for no apparent reason. And the trauma that comes.
Your phone is on mute, Carrie.
In front of him. We see this on the news constantly over and over. So I'm more worried about the trauma as well, the effects that it's going to have on us.
Okay, so so the neighbor, James Smith, I saw the interview he gave to the media, and my heart literally dropped for him, because he said he felt guilty and responsible for this young lady being killed. That was not his intent. And it's a sad day. And even he said it. He was like, you know, you are expected to check on your neighbor. You are expected to call the police when something is not right. But how are we going to call the police if we can't trust the police? And I just personally, again, I feel so bad for him, because I know he didn't have any ill will intent behind that call. He just wanted to make sure that she was okay. You know, and I'm quite sure he was running through scenarios. Well, what if I would have just knocked on her door? Or what if I would have just called her? Or if he didn't have her number, what if I would have sent someone else to check on her? You know, so I want to get your take on that, ladies. Just the psychological, you know, effect that's going to take a toll on this man's heart. I want to get your take on it, ladies.
Carrie, you want to go ahead?
No, you go first. I'm trying to think.
Okay, sis. No worries. Yeah, I've seen a brief interview with Mr. Smith as well, and I can only imagine the emotional toll and the guilt and the replay and the rehearsal in his mind on would have, could have, should have. And not only that, but he's probably feeling ashamed and embarrassed that he has to take accountability for something that he doesn't need to take ownership for. He can't take on the accountability and the responsibility of having ownership over her homicide. That does not belong to him. However, I can understand how he can feel hurt behind the outcome of what the intention wasn't for. So I just hope that in time he has closure in his heart and sees his intentions were to see that she was okay. Never in a million years did he think that he was going to call and see that she was taken care of, she was serviced, she was protected, and in return, she was slaughtered. Now, I don't know how he's going to get his healing. I hope he's able to rest at night. I hope he's able to understand that what happened isn't his fault.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Agreed.
I mean, it's heavy though. I couldn't imagine. I don't know if he's eaten or slept, but it's a lot to take on. You almost feel responsible for that young woman's death. And there's probably people that are going to blame him for that. But what I want to say to Mr. James Smith, hopefully he gets some type of peace knowing that he had enough integrity and dignity to apologize on camera, since they want to interview him as if it was his fault and still not disclose the officer.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. So, and salute to him. I mean, again, like you said, he had the decency, you know what I mean? Like the integrity to say, hey, this is a young woman. I want to make sure she's okay. So no, we do not blame him for another person's action, you know, and I'm quite sure, yeah, there's a lot of burdensome that would be carried by him for years and years to come. But I just hope that he's able to find peace within. And I'm quite sure he's probably never going to be able to fully overcome this. But I do hope he's able to get some therapy and, you know, at least learn how to cope with this situation. So, Carrie, I want to get your take on it as well.
Yeah, it's the same thing. He shouldn't blame himself. He was doing something courteous. He was checking on his neighbor, which I salute and I praise him for, because we don't do that enough. We don't look out for each other. I hope he gets the best counseling that he needs. Once again, he shouldn't blame himself for something or action that someone else has done, because once again, we talk about the police officer, he should have identified himself, let the individual that's in the apartment know that he's there to check, not to just shoot point blank. So I hope he gets the counseling he needs. Sorry for the noise in the background. And I don't want him to blame himself. If I was alone in my apartment, I would want someone to check on me as well, or have the decency to see how things are going. Because there's a lot of break and entry, especially in homes, private homes, condos. So I hope he realized that what he did was a good judgment and no one blames him.
Agreed. Like, okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the mere fact that she had her 8-year-old nephew with her playing video games. And my thoughts, the very first thing that came to my mind when I read that was, okay, what if they would have shot and killed this young little boy? Like, they had no regard for who was in that house. And so they're also trying to say, oh, well, she had a gun in the apartment, but you didn't give her a command to stand down or do anything. And you damn sure didn't check to see if anybody else was in. Like, as a police officer, you should be able to check your surroundings, make sure that there's more, just that one person, if you quote unquote seeing this person as a threat, and you make sure that your surroundings is good. He didn't give a damn about who was in that house. His whole mindset was shoot to kill and ask questions later. And I just thought that was just so foul of him to do that. It's like, dude, like, you could have literally took this 8-year-old, and then on top of that, this 8-year-old had to see his aunt die in front of him. Like, we're thinking about the therapy that Mr. James has to go through, but also this 8-year-old child to know that, hey, my aunt was killed in front of me. My God, like, I just can't even imagine what that child is going through right now. So I want to get your take on this, ladies, because both of you guys have children, and I can only imagine what's going through your heart and what you're feeling, you know, as a mother, how this would take a toll on anybody's child for that matter. So I want to get your take on it, ladies.
Yes, Quan, you are. That's what I said earlier. Is the action that was taken, should I say, by the police officer. He was supposed to identify himself. There was a child in the room. So not only did you shoot someone, you almost put the child at risk, and you don't know if that was his caretaker. You don't know if she was the one raising him. So basically, you stole and you took away a loving family member because you were not trained properly or you didn't care. I mean, if that was the case, hopefully that never happens to me, but I would feel like, oh my goodness, why again are we shooting without asking any questions, without identifying ourselves? The child would need therapy moving forward. He would not trust the police officer. It's based on history. We don't trust police officers at all nowadays. And now this is happening all over again. Shoot to kill. That's their MO. That's their motive. Ask questions later.
You're absolutely right. Shoot to kill and ask questions later. That's their model. That's what they are basically trained to do. And they know that they're going to have the support of some of the public and of obviously the whole entire police force, because clearly this is an ongoing situation where it happens all the time, and the cycle is, you know, it's going to be a police involved shooting. They get killed, they get on administrative paid leave, and their names don't get released, and then ultimately, you know, they're not penalized or criminalized for their actions. So again, you know, I want to get your take on it, Alex. Like, I want to get your take on the 8-year-old nephew being in the house and seeing this happening.
I agree with what Carrie had to say. I just wonder when that protocol is going to change. I mean, there's several things that came to my mind. If the officer used excessive force on Miss Atatiana Jefferson, and this resulted in a murder, homicide, death, fatal shot, I just wonder how the appropriateness of the 8-year-old child was handled, okay? Because I'm sure the child has a very different account of their perception of what happened. And when it comes to children have to be handled very carefully, because the more adults they encounter, the more questions they have to answer, and the more muddled a story becomes. So they can't be handled, you know, over and over and over, and asked and asked and asked, and investigated and investigated and investigated, because before you know it, they can take on counter-transference and transference and be manipulated. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happened. What I'm saying is I would hope that no coercion has taken place, but I'm pretty sure that young boy has a very different account of his experience on what happened, and that being a death perceived or threatened or hostile event for that officer to respond with a fatal shot. Also, too, I mean, children process things differently. So, but what we can say, though, whether or not it's an 8-year-old boy or a 62-year-old man, they're both going to have to reevaluate their position socially here in America with law enforcement. So absolutely. That in itself, is Mr. 62-year-old James Smith going to contact Fort Worth Police Department and the next time there's an emergency or sincere issue? Or is this 8-year-old boy going to grow up with a tainted perspective on law enforcement and see what can happen if there's a response other than putting up your hands and laying flat on your face and saying, yes, officer? It's just, I think the whole situation has to be evaluated tactically. But again, the responsibility is not on the 8-year-old family member or the 62-year-old neighbor. The responsibility and accountability needs to be on the police force responding with excessive force resulting in fatalities. because this situation should not have happened. And this could have been a future Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who also has her medical degree. So again, rest in peace. Rest in peace.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So we'll definitely dive into Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, because she definitely, her theories on racism and white supremacy definitely ties into this whole scenario. So we're definitely going to tackle Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. But before we do that, I want to talk about the idea of the castle doctrine, right? So in the Bolton Johns case, the defense for Amber Geiger basically wanted to use, well, let's just take a step back. The judge recommended that they use the castle doctrine, right? And so for those of you who don't know, Texas is an open carry state. And also they have the castle doctrine, which basically suggests that a person has the right to have a firearm in their home. And in this case with Atatiana Jefferson, the cop literally fired off his weapon in 3 seconds. And the police department, their statement is that, oh, well, he saw a firearm in the house. That's why he fired his weapon. And when I looked up the actual definition of the castle doctrine, basically it allows you to be in your humble abode and carry a weapon. It's like the stand your ground law. It gives you the right to have a weapon in your own home. And to be honest with you, I don't know anybody in the state of Texas who does not have a gun in their house. And so they're basically trying to use this, but I'm saying, but wait a minute, you know, the castle doctrine was in full display with her case because she had a right to carry a firearm. Even if they did see a weapon at the end of the day, 1, you're on private property. 2, she's in her damn home. And 3, she has the right to carry a goddamn firearm. So you can't use that as justification. So I want to get your take on it, ladies, because again, this is being thrown around and, you know, they're trying to use this whole idea of, oh, I saw a gun, so I had to shoot, as their defense already. So I want to get your take on it, ladies, and how you feel about, you know, the castle doctrine and how it applies to Atatiana Jefferson.
Carrie, you want to go ahead?
Okay. Well, my take is I understand that there's a doctrine there. I understand it's similar to stand your ground, but it doesn't negate the fact that the officer went there unannounced. Now, we all know that right now they are working on having his defense, his legal, or everyone's getting together so they could just prepare this case that he was in there and there was a gun. I don't believe there was a gun because according to all the information that's being given to everyone, she was there with her nephew playing a video game. And I'm going to go back to, once again, he did not identify himself. So if he get off on this charge, I don't know about how everyone else feel on the chat. I'm ready to do a petition. I'm ready to scream, yell, protest if I have to. Enough is enough already. We cannot be using these laws to benefit one group and not benefit the other. And that's what's happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you with that. I think the city is going to explode. Seriously, if they do not criminalize this police officer, this city will explode, or we're going to have another Mackay on our hand where you're going to have somebody go off on a police officer in retaliation. I just think that's ultimately what's going to happen because this has happened too many times since June 1st. I mean, we're talking about 7 people killed at the hand of a police officer. So I think the city is literally going to explode. Go ahead, Alex. I want to get your take on it.
Yeah, it's becoming very, very frustrating. And I'm pretty sure that there are some brothers in the chat, some sisters in the chat. I mean, let's just be honest. You know what I'm saying? If a 26-year-old black man can be murdered by an off-duty law enforcement agent in his home while eating ice cream, and then a week later, a 28-year-old black woman is playing video games and is murdered in her home by a law enforcement agent, It's almost like you can't even be black in America in your home and enjoy leisure time without being assaulted fatally and just dying. I mean, where's the accountability? This doesn't happen in an Asian setting, an Arab setting, a Hispanic setting. Why is the black being the black being melanated person being fatally injured? I don't get it. Why are police choosing that method? There has to be some type of recourse for this profession. There has to. And if he's only been on the force since 2018, how much experience have you had with the black community? Why do you feel that it's necessary to immediately pull your gun out and shoot somebody in the head or shoot somebody in the heart? How much training have you had? How comfortable are you in an urban setting? Why is it threatening that a black individual has a gun in their home if you know the law as a law enforcer as yourself? I don't get it. So if Amber Geiger can use that same rule that's recommended by the judge, she shouldn't have been making no recommendation. She was supposed to just weigh the evidence and make a decision. You can't recommend nothing to the prosecutor. You know what I'm saying? Stay in your lane. It's just very frustrating. Why can a black man not have the same opportunity and assets as a white man here in America? Why is that a threat? If America's going to be for equality and equity, why not implement it across the board? Why be threatened by an educated, beautiful black woman who has a gun in her home? She didn't have it in her hand. It wasn't pointed at you. She just stood there and you shot in 3 seconds. Most of us can't even process a thought, let alone breathe and respond versus react in 3 seconds. So with that being said, don't you think law enforcers should have more training psychologically to become responsive versus reactive, especially when it comes to a child having to witness that? So what are they going to do with more children who are victims of police brutality and seeing loved ones die?
Yeah, honestly, my thoughts are, if you are afraid, you should not be on a goddamn police force. Plain and simple. Too many times we hear about these officers who claim to be afraid of a black person and using this as to justify shooting another or killing a black person. And a lot of times these officers do not live in the communities that they police, which brings us back to the black code. We need to be able to police our own damn communities. And until we're able to do that, police our own communities, we're going to constantly have this happening. Because again, these people do not live in these communities. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of these police officers are quote unquote traveling probably 15, 20 minutes outside of where they normally police, if not 30 minutes or more. And so a lot of times you find these people who don't live in the community, they don't eat in the community, all they do is go there to basically wreak havoc. That's it. And I see a problem with that. Like, I seriously find it very troublesome that you would find more officers who live outside of the communities that they police. You know what I'm saying? Like that, I take real issue with that. But also, like, I think if the police were to lose their pensions for killing an unarmed black person, it would definitely stop the majority of the killers. Not going to say all, but it would definitely stop them in their tracks, because two things that white supremacy, they basically respond to: loss of money and loss of life. So I think ultimately, because I don't think we're at that level yet to really take an eye for an eye and hey, you kill us, we kill you. We're not at that level yet. But I think if they were to seriously lose their pensions, you would definitely see a drastic change.
Yeah.
So I want to get your take on it. I want to get your take on that, ladies.
You're right, Kwan. I'm with you 100%. But we also have to ensure that most of these officers who do the killing, they have a tendency to move on to other city jobs, other government jobs. Yeah, I think there was one that killed someone, and then they go into becoming a firefighter. It's so easy for them to work within their circle, within the state, within the government, and find another job where most likely the pension will continue. So not only should they be told or fired, they should also not have the luxury of taking another exam and work for the government or the cities. Because once again, you're right. They're policing neighborhoods that they far removed from. They have no idea the day-to-day struggle that most of us go through. They look at us like we are nothing but just a piece, I don't know, garbage. I don't know what they think sometimes. And they really don't care. You're right. They go home in their little house and they think, oh, I did what I had to do. I police the neighborhood. I put them in control. I don't care what they feel, what they go through. That's not my concern. So most of them think that way. But if we are going to fire them, we also need to make sure they don't move on to other jobs in the government in the city.
I absolutely agree with you. But a lot of times they don't even have to take the test. They just transfer to different parish or county or state, and they be able to keep their pensions and just sign on to another police force. So I want to get your take on it, Alex.
Yeah, or just take a desk job and just keep everything and just be reprimanded in that fashion, which is still disgusting and it's still a disservice because nothing changes in our community. Kat, you said a very powerful thing, and that's true. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you could take a basic sociology course and you'll see like early 1900s in America, how the Italians and the Jews and the Irish and the Polish, how they all fall under the umbrella term of white. And they were dispersed differently due to education and family styles and, you know, the way that their family structure was and how they got their jobs. You know, Jews tend to be more educational based. They have smaller knit families, so they excelled. And the Italians, larger families, and then the Irish, you know, police force, and the Polish factories, so on and so forth. Then the blacks got jobs. You see what I'm saying? So the opportunity has denied us from the get-go. But I want to say something very important. No matter if you're Italian, Jewish, Irish, or Polish, they're going to stick together, period. And that's how they excel economically. And also, too, we got to do our research because Dr. Leonard Jeffries Jr. talks about economics because economics create and produce, and culture dictates economics and politics. So where's our culture of unity? Where's our culture of harmony? Where's our connectivity? So we got to focus on African values, African interests, African principles, and stay on that black code. Because no matter what, at the end of the day, they do.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I've said this on so many different Sister Cypher sessions. One thing I can definitely give white supremacy credit for, if I can give them credit for anything, is they remain on code. Wrong, indifferent, all right. They remain on code. They support one another, whether this person is dead as wrong to the left. And that's the kind of thing that we need to do as a community. We need to have that black code. We need to have that wall of enforcement, and we have to remain united. Like until we're able to come together and understand the basic fundamentals of being on a black code, you know, we're going to constantly be defeated at white supremacy. We have to understand what a black code means. And I just think, like, again, that's going to be step number one. We need to do some real cleaning of our house, if you will. Like we have to get that embedded into our mindset, because too many times you see us not on code and it's ridiculous at this point. But also, like, I'm just thinking about this story, and Alex, you and I were discussing this, and I just look at this story, and it's definitely a tragic story, but that could have been me. That could have been you, Alex. That could have been you, Carrie. That could have been any one of us in this story. You know, I live alone, and I'm just thinking, like, look, I'm going to just keep it 100. I live near downtown Dallas, and there's a lot of white folks around me, okay? And what if they decide to call the cops or some crap like that, and I'm the only black face on this street, and they come in and murder my ass? All I'm going to say is, family, you better ride for me. I'm not playing. I want justice. But ultimately what I'm saying is that could have been me. That could have been any one of us, ladies. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, this woman had such a bright future, and it was stolen from her. She was basically murdered, and we have to really call it what it is. And I give credit to the pastors out in Fort Worth. They are basically saying, look, we need to call this what it is. That is flat out murder, nothing else. They need to be held accountable for this. So I want to get your take on it, ladies. Like, how do you feel? Because, I mean, I see myself in this story. I don't know if you do, but I definitely see myself in this woman's shoes. That could have been me. So what's your take on it, ladies?
I'll go real quick if you don't mind, Kat. I don't know why, and this might sound weird, but when you said pastor I said in my mind, pastors, overseers, pastors. And I don't know if that's appropriate, but what I will say is I'm glad that they're speaking up. You know what I'm saying? What's next? You know, what's next? Is there going to be a march? You know what I'm saying? Is it going to be another candle, you know what I'm saying, prayer side? You know, and I'm not trying to be funny. It's great to have
like a vigil.
I mean, and that's wonderful. It's sending wonderful energy, you know what I'm saying, wholesome prayers and whatnot. However, in addition to that, we can only do so much on our end. Where's the accountability from the law enforcement agency? You know what I'm saying? That's what I just want to focus on, period. Because we can only do so much with changing our hearts and changing our attitudes and changing our actions and being docile and passive and submissive and understanding and forgiving. At the end of the day, it's almost like, fuck that. Y'all the ones killing us. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that every white law enforcement agent is racist. What I'm saying is that the racist white supremacist structure must fall. That's the problem. And I think that more officers who are not of color must speak up and speak out and denounce these acts of terrorism. Period.
We're gonna get in that because the guy who was the former police chief, he made a statement. We're going to get into that, but I want to get your take on it, Carrie. Like, what's your feeling on it? Because I mean, again, I saw myself as a sister, and that could have been any one of us. What's your take on it?
I'm totally agree with Alex. I was going to say the same thing. There are enough officers of colors who should be up in arm as well. I know there's a code, a silent blue wall or whatever they call it, blue wall. But enough is enough. We have to also, no matter what side you on, realize that we are a target. You said it earlier. She had a bright future ahead of her. There's so many of us African Americans who are doing our thing, who are working. And if we are seen as target, no matter what's your income, no matter what neighborhood you live in, that means we still have far to go. And to me, it's like so disturbing that in 2019, we are still talking about our brothers and sisters being killed. I mean, it's saddening, it's frustrating, and that's what I mentioned earlier. I'm ready to make noise. I don't want to hear, I apologize. I don't want to hear turn the other cheek. I don't want to hear it anymore. I think enough is enough. And it's basically letting us know, no matter, like I stated earlier, what neighborhood you live on, they do not care how much you make. They don't care how many degrees you have. They do not care. We are all the same in their eyes.
Yeah, because all they see is just another, excuse my language, another nigga at the end of the day.
Yes. And I want to interject. Church isn't a bad thing. However, we need to remember when you come up out that building, you are in reality. So without the mindset of being in the building, you are the building. You are the body. And beyond a religious aspect, we are each other's keeper. So regardless, again, if you are Black in law enforcement, the law is the law, and it should be the same for anybody. And if you are found guilty of murder, whether or not being a law enforcement, you are subject to the same as anybody else in this world. So when you strip that title of law enforcement agency, then you're the same as we are, and you are guilty if you did it. So I just think that sometimes we use these terms, and we're so loquacious, and we're just so, the verbiage and the lexicon, and we say things that are appropriately. We need to come down to a colloquial terminology to say what's right. If you kill somebody unjustly that had no intent to harm you, that has to have accountability. Seriously, 3 seconds? There was no tactical observation. That woman is dead, but you can never get people back.
And what I want to know is, since you're talking about what we need to do, like, yes, you do have some church pastors coming out and being very vocal, but I also want to know, like, at the end of the day, where's the Me Too movement? Where's the Time's Up folks? Where is all the feminists? Like, this is a woman at the end of the day. Yes, you are identified as your skin color, but I mean, she's a woman first. A lot of people say, oh no, it's your skin. No, it starts from within. She's a woman first. Okay? So I want to know where all of these groups are. Why are they not outraged like the rest of us? Why are they not protesting? And again, yes, we do need to do more than just protesting, because again, it's just another hashtag. But at the end of the day, it's like we need to be reaching out to these political figures who we so adamantly vote into office and let them know, look, hey, goddamn it, we voted you in. We would literally reject your ass out of the office. So I just want to get your take on it, ladies, because again, a lot of times you see this happening, and these groups are quote unquote supposed to be all pro-woman this and pro-woman that, and I'm a feminist this, and Me Too movement that, and Time's Up folks this, but they're absolutely silent right now. So, and I'm just like, where are they? Like, why are they not speaking up for this woman? Like, where are all these quote unquote leaders in these movements? Where are they right now? Why are they not making noise like the rest of the community? So I want to get your take on it, ladies.
You know what, Kwan, you are absolutely right. That's why I started off by saying we should be all up in arms. And we do have that tendency of separating ourselves. I know I'm a feminist, like I stated many times before, and I'm also African-American, so I do fight for anything, no matter what. If I see injustice, I will fight for it. But unfortunately, we tend to separate ourselves. I think you said it earlier as well. You see all these group Jews, the Polish, and people stick together. One thing we don't do as a group, unfortunately, is stick together and fight for the cause. Sometimes we have a tendency to separate ourselves by income, by neighborhood, by what you have, what you don't have. And right now, we should all unite together and let them know this was unjust, this was uncalled for, and we're breaking up families. This is the key. We're breaking up family, and we're putting fear into our brothers and sisters. Do not retaliate. Do not go against a police officer. And this is why I keep saying enough is enough already. I don't care if you're a police officer. I don't care if you're a lieutenant. I don't care if you're a judge, teacher. I don't care whatever. We need to all unite. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care what neighborhood you live. Like I stated earlier, we all the same. We look the same. We all the same. And that, to them, that's all we are. We said it earlier, excuse our French, but they look at us as niggas, regardless, no matter what. And if people don't get upset in the next 72 hours, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, very, very true, very powerful, Carrie. And that's a great question, Quan. Where are the others in the communities? I wonder what the trans women have to say. I wonder what the trans women have to say. You know, because there's been issues with the Black Girl Rap. You know, we want our own Black Girl. Well, what's up? Y'all women, run it. Where your boys at? Come support us now. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how the change is going to happen. But again, I mean, we can only take so much accountability, but we can't take ownership over something that isn't our shit. This isn't our behavior. These aren't our responses. However, I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, can we come to a global, universal boycott economic strategically? I mean, some type of punishment to show you that we will not be treated this way or accept that hostility or fatal engagement with our community. I mean, it's crazy. But again, and lastly too, I know you mentioned we were going to transition. I just wonder, I go back to that 8-year-old family member that had to witness his aunt being slaughtered accidentally. I wonder if he received a hug. I wonder how he stood there and processed to the best of his 8-year-old ability that his loved one was just murdered by a law agent enforcement.
Alex, I'm willing to bet they called child social services to come to the scene as they process her body. I'm almost willing to bet that. I'm quite sure they did not offer any condolences, any hug, any reassurance, or none of that. They probably allowed him to sit in the house crying, and then on top of that, call child social services until they were able to get in contact with the parents. And then from there, that person was allowed to take that child home. I'm quite sure they did not console this person, not one bit. Because that's not what they do. Because if that's the case, if they're that caring, they would have never shot into that damn window. If we can just keep it all the way a buck.
And yes, Kwan, I would also like to add, and this is how the cycle continue. You kill someone in front of another person, a young child, and then he might grow up, if you don't get the counseling, if you don't get the support he needs, or apology to the family, we just start this cycle all over again. He's going to be angry. He's going to take it out on someone else. And I mean, apology. We deserve apology. We deserve respect. We deserve justice. And we deserve to be up in arms once again.
Absolutely. Now, one thing I noticed too, Two things I want to tackle before we get into Dr. Francis Cress Wilson. I notice how the media always protect the officer involved in a shooting. Like, they always withhold their information. They never release their photo. They never release their name, their age, or any of that information. And as I've stated earlier, if this was a Black person who had killed an officer, hell, you would know about his damn kindergarten teacher. You would know about his family members, his record, basically like everything, where he worked, all of that. They would expose everything. But yet they protect the blue. They protect their own. And they make sure that no information is put out there about him. They literally wipe the internet with anything about this person. So they give them an opportunity to scrub the internet. And a lot of times these officers are part of the KKK or white supremacy or white militia. And so what they do is they allow the officers to take down all their information. And I can't remember who said it before on one of their lives. If you are at a scene of a police-involved shooting, get their damn badge number, get their name, get their police card number. You get what I'm saying? And make sure you document this stuff so we can expose these people for who they are. Okay?
You know what? You know what though, Quan? We watched Eric Garner be choked to death, and he just now stopped getting a pension. And he had a GoFundMe. The doggone cop who was off duty who choked him. It was on camera. So again, what are we supposed to do? We can say their name, their mama name, where they went to school at, what time it was. We can even reenact the whole thing on a theater play. We can only do so much at the end. They gotta change. But the question is, will they?
No, I don't. Honestly, you can't. With hate, it's hard to change a person who's been taught this their entire lives and who feel like, oh, I'm quote unquote the underdog, so I got to take out as many as I can, right? Their whole mindset is different from us. You know, we just cut from a different cloth. We don't operate like them. Their whole mindset is, oh, well, guess what? You know, they say that we're going to be out in 53, we're going to be a minority. I'm going to take out as many as we can. I always want to be the dominant force. And they've never been the majority, but guess what? In this world, on this planet, they have everybody thinking that they are the dominant force and they are the majority, and they've never been the majority. They've only been the 1/5 of the entire planet when it comes to population. But what the propaganda that they sell is that they are in the majority. And that's another thing that we have to get understanding. Look, they are not in the majority. They are not. They've never been in the majority. So it's just, that's the mindset that we have to have. And also, again, yes, you're right, Alex. We can't change them. Well, I mean, we can only do so much, but I do believe that we have to start fighting fucking back. Excuse my language. Like,
no, you go ahead, Quan. Yes.
Yeah, you know, we have to understand that, you know what, look, by any means necessary, okay? And if that means you got to go to war with your oppressor, then so be it, because we are at war, ladies and gentlemen. We are at war. As much as you don't want to admit it, we have been at war for generations, but it seems like nowadays it's getting more covert. It's getting more and more. You're starting to hear about it like every other week. And I'm just like, did this happen during Jim Crow and throwing like slavery and all of this other stuff? Like, I don't ever remember hearing about somebody get killed by a police officer. Look like every other week. Like, this is getting ridiculous at this point. So I want to get your take on it, ladies, and then I'm going to ask one more. I'm going to discuss Joel Fitzgerald's information, and then we're going to dive into Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, and then we're going to close out.
No, you are absolutely right. We need to actually ask for justice, like I stated earlier, and we cannot allow these officers or individuals. And remember, it's not only the officers that are killing our people. It's regular small Joe with a weapon in their hand, and we have to hold them accountable and speak up, and not allow every time you turn the news, every time you read a newspaper, one of us are being killed and we don't do a damn thing about it, or we talk about it for a few days, and then when you turn around, that's it.
On to the next. Yeah, right. On to the next hashtag.
We'll be on BET for an hour, 2 hour BET. Next minute, you know, oh well, next hot music, hot video, and we forget about these bodies, these individuals who are people, who have souls, who are regardless of how they live in. They're individual. They're human beings. And we need to put that out there. You cannot keep killing us, and we're going to forget about it. We are going to turn the other cheek. We are not going to hold you accountable. You can go on with your life. Enough is enough already.
Yeah, I just think that the whole racism, white supremacy mindset is fear-based and ego-based, and it's very narcissistic not to take accountability for wrongdoings. I mean, look at PETA, for example. You got more people out here that care about the welfare of an animal than a black man. I mean,
so true. So
you got more people out here going vegan than walking away from racist ideologies. So again, I mean, the white supremacist structure will fail. It's a matter of time. I think anybody who participates in it needs to take a deep internal reflection and ask themselves, why am I afraid? And I have nothing else positive to say about it. I'm just going to be still because I'm starting to breathe heavy, and it's a heavy topic. It's a heavy topic, and I know people in the room sometimes get overwhelmed. And you know, it's good that we expose this and come together as Sirius Mindz and really talk about proactive things and be honest and open about what's going on.
So 2 things. One, as you know, Lee Merritt, who's an attorney who represented Bolton John's family, he is also stepping up and wants to represent Atatiana Jefferson's family. And to me, that's just like, dude, like seriously, at this point, you are what we call an ambulance chaser. It's like you're hopping on everybody's case, but the only thing you're getting is a goddamn bag. You're like, there's no justice happening in any of these cases. You know, and it's just, I don't believe that this family, the Jefferson family, will get the proper justice. Like, we can demand as protesters that we want justice, but when I see him and Benjamin Crump running to a goddamn case, like, I already know that it's all about the bag. And if we learned anything from Bolton's John's case, is that one, integrity was completely out of the door, and it was all about the bag. And I'm just saying, like, in this case, I don't want to see a family get in a bag and they just all docile and humble and, oh, we should just all get along. No, like, I want to see justice, because again, that could have been me. What if that was my sister, you know, or anybody in my family, or any one of you ladies, or anybody in the chat room? Like, now I want to see justice for these flat out killers. So I want to get your take on seeing Attorney Lee Merritt represent the family of this young, beautiful Black woman. Like, I just think it's bananas at this point, but I mean, hey, he seems to be the go-to person when it comes to representing families here in Texas when it comes to police shootings, and he's not getting no damn justice. Nobody's getting put in prison per se, but you know, what's your take on it, ladies?
We should cancel him. We should cancel both of them. If I was a family member, I'd be like, no, thank you, sir. First of all, you have not done anything. It reminds me of Al Sharpton. Even though he fought for many causes and he pushed us and he made us out there in the forefront, we also have to be careful with these leaders or lawyers that actually are there 1 minute and the next minute you don't hear from them. So if that was me, and that was my family member or anyone on the chat, or my sisters, my beautiful sister Kwan, God forbid, or Alex, no, cancel that check. I'll probably be out there and be like, with my bullhorn, saying hell to the no.
Well, let me go on record and say, if anything, God forbid, happens to me, and you see Lee Merritt ass running towards my family, tell my family to kick his ass out of their house and tell him go on about his business some damn well, because clearly, he's all about money and no justice. And Amen. I want goddamn justice, okay? Right. What's your take on it, Alex?
I just think that when we say social justice and when we say civil rights, why in the fuck are we still fighting for both almost in 2020?
Come on.
Right, Alex.
And I have to say it like that. I mean, it's crazy. And it doesn't seem like a war because there's so many, you know, illusions of inclusion. But it is. If you can get murdered for sitting at home eating ice cream and playing video games and there's no accountability, then why would somebody stop?
Okay, so last, before we dive into that, and I keep saying it, and I'm sorry, chat room, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share. But we are getting to the end of this. But okay, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Fort Worth police chief, who was a black man, was actually removed from office. And he and his attorney are basically saying if he was still in that position, the murder of Atatiana Jefferson would have never happened. And I totally disagree with that. I absolutely disagree with that, because honestly, under his reign, they still have black people getting murdered by police officers. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? But basically he's saying that, oh, we need more training, and oh, if I was in charge, this would have never happened, and oh, help me get reinstated so we can tackle this and stop police shootings. And I'm like, dude, please. Like, you couldn't stop it when you was on the force. So how the hell are you going to stop it now, even if you do get reinstated as police chief? I think it's just all, and excuse my language, ladies and gentlemen, but it's just all hogwash bullshit at the end of the day. It's like, just because you're a black police chief, just like the one here in Dallas, who was absolutely useless, it's no different there in Fort Worth. None whatsoever. You have absolutely no pull. They're going to do what they want to do regardless. And they'll show you that we don't support you, and they'll make you feel unsafe. You get what I'm saying? Even to the point they may allow stuff to happen to you just to show you, hey, stick with us, or, you know, you're not going to have the protection that you need. So I want to get your take on this, ladies, and then we're going to go into Dr. Francis Cress Wilson.
Once again, should have, could have, would have. Just all smell like bullshit. And regardless if you on the job, you're not off the job, there's supposed to be a training manual to continue to help these police officers understand that when they're out there policing or protecting the people that they serve, quote unquote, they need to do the appropriate thing, whether it's to identify themselves, whether to let the perpetrator or whatever know that, hey, put your arms up, there's training manuals for this. So you cannot tell me that you're going to go in and change the world overnight. So could have, would have, should have, stay where you at. Let's get to the core, which is to train these officers, and like you say, then maybe they might need a psychological exam or two, or therapy or something before they hit the force. That's my opinion.
Well, one thing I will commend him for saying, he did outright come out and say that the city of Fort Worth has become a hate state. And so, yeah, I'm just like surprised that he said it, because he is a former police chief. And a lot of times you don't see police officers who admit that racism, systematic racism, occurs in their police force. So kudos to him for that. Otherwise, it's a whole bunch of bullshit of what he's saying. What's your take on it, Alex?
Again, the racist white supremacy structure must fall. I think we need to start interviewing some white supremacist racists and showing them for what they are, in the mindset, in the fear, and making things more blatant, and start denouncing this activity, this behavior, this mindset, exposing who supports it. I think President Trump, okay, should have some accountability right now in the Department of Justice. How about y'all start printing the statistics, each city, each county, quarterly, on how many murders on Black men and women have been conducted fatally on accident.
It's hard to do that when you have the attorney general, who's the top cop in the U.S., who's a racist, right? So, but go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, it's okay. It's just I want to talk about solutions from a different standpoint, because it's frustrating. It's almost like, you know what I'm saying? Even for the police chiefs that are Black and in power, I mean, some are cooning and some are doing the best they can. How much are we supposed to anticipate to produce change from a limited ability? It's almost like, you know what I'm saying, they need to start rewriting some laws. They need to start, you know, behavioral change, systemic change, economic participation change, a whole education educational background change. It should be almost mandated that a specific amount of Black people should be in the law enforcement agency. But even then, it's the mindset on code. But even then, it's the mindset of law. So the application needs to be reviewed in the administration of the application in the excessive force in our community. So there's no denying that, you know what I'm saying, there's racism in the police force. And for those who are white supremacists in the police force who are racist, there's a such thing as karma. So I mean, the fear, the fear and the annihilation of the Black people overall, it's gonna have to be answered to one way or another. And you know, that's all I have to say about that. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how many more wars are going to be waged. If there's going to be a Civil War 3, what's going to happen? But I think people are going to get sick of it. What if somebody goes and shoots the judge in the face? You know what I'm saying? What if, and hopefully it doesn't come to that. But how much action is going to be needed for change to happen?
Well, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing is known for her theories on racism and white supremacy. And she basically stated, and for those of you who do not know who she is, I do advise you to go read the ISIS papers or Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's theory on color confrontation, which is an essay she wrote in 1974. So if you can read her theories, you would have a fundamental understanding on white supremacy. But she basically stated that melanated people are being attacked and also destroyed by white supremacy. And she said that white supremacy, their plan is to make us think that we are the reason why we're dying. And basically they pin us against one another. And ultimately, you know, they're psychologically, you know, working on us to the point where we hate our own skin color. We hate ourselves. And she basically stated that we have been programmed for generations, you know, but ultimately what we need to do is focus on the system of white supremacy, because it's really waging war against us as melanated people. And you know, I think ultimately, just like, you know, Dr. Welsing has stated, white supremacy's mission is to basically get rid of melanated people, and because they are outnumbered. And I think if, just like she stated, like if you don't understand the system of white supremacy, you will never understand racism. And we have to understand what's at stake when it comes to us in our communities. You know, these devils are very crafty and clever. And we have to be just as crafty and just as clever as them. And we have to understand how we need to maneuver in this white supremacy system and be able to tackle it and defeat it. And I think, you know, until we're able to, like you said, Alex, come up with solutions, real tangible solutions of how we can beat white supremacy, and one being starting with a Black code, we will never be able to defeat white supremacy. So I want to get your take on Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, because to me, she's one of my favorites, you know, as far as the conscious movement. Like, I love her theories on racism, and she's kind of my go-to person when I need to understand and have and revamp and realign myself and understand why things is happening. I go back to her and her theories because it makes sense on so many levels. Even Dr. Neely Fuller Jr., like if you read their readings and you read their theories, you'll have a fundamental understanding of why things are happening to this day. So I want to get your take on it, ladies, and then ultimately we're going to close out.
Well, for once, I think as a group, we often tend to feel like we defeated. I don't think people realize, let's go back to the police officer. We are the reason why they aren't in business. We work every day, our money goes into their pocket to police us. We have to, that's why I said we have to speak up a little more and tell them exactly what we want in our neighborhood. It's not so much that they could dictate what they're gonna do and when they're gonna do it. That's our money that we put into the community to be safe. We need to look into that. Another thing is we need to also hold them accountable. There should be some type of community outreach to our youth. There should be programs for our parents. to help them, to let them feel safe in the neighborhood, to make them move beyond that community that they're in. So everything that we do as working individual, we need to look into, and those that don't work, it doesn't even matter. The police are our employees, and not a lot of us know that. We don't.
Our tax dollars pay their salaries. You
Right.
are absolutely correct.
Okay, and then if they are going to not just arrest us, how about sit in that boardroom or that office and put things in our community for our youth? How about not have some type of mentorship, some type, not just PAL, do more, so that way you won't kill us. That way we won't end up on the front news because you're saying we out of control. You are pushing us to be this way. It's a system that they have. The more they push, the more we push back. And this needs to end.
Yeah, that's a great little piece of information there, that we pay their salaries. I'm pretty sure the next time I have an encounter, I hope I don't snap, I pay your salary. And Carrie, you said something powerful too in regards to community centers for our youth. You know, hopefully the pastors who did raise hell in Fort Worth, Texas, in regards to the officers having accountability, hopefully they can engulf that young man and mentor him and take him in, as we all can, whether or not we participate in religion. Shout out to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. I discovered her actually earlier this year. And Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, for those in the chat who don't know, she was a psychiatrist with a medical degree. And she's very poised, very calm, very tactful, very appropriate. She's very dignified, and her message is very accurate with her disposition. And in regards to, you know what I'm saying, melanin being slaughtered, I mean, there are different areas of battle, like you mentioned, Quan, with Neely Feller Jr., with the economics and the education and the entertainment and the labor and the law and the politics and the religion and the sex and the war. And now, you know, with the health, with the food and the medical care, it's almost like, you know what I'm saying, there's so many different distractions and tactics to divide us people across the board, no matter where you are. So, you know, through slaughter, melanin is being destroyed. Distraction, division, pacification. Basically, we're happy with crime. So I just think that the system of racism, white supremacy is what we must focus on. And like, for example, just like one of the areas of battle with entertainment, you know, I was thinking in my mind before we made this call, I was like, say, for example, if we had like 300 of our favorite, you know what I'm saying, Black entertainers, 300 of our favorite, you know, African-American entertainers that made it, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if you take 300 people out of 7.5 billion people, that's like only 1 out of every 25 million of us making it. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have an accurate depiction of success. So it's like, to paraphrase Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she said, we need to apply our energy force in a laser type manner. You know what I'm saying? To neutralize the war that is coming at us. But it's almost like, how do you neutralize someone that denies you and strips your passport? How do you neutralize somebody that, you know, is serving you up from a very young age, birth control? You know what I'm saying? And then we do have the coons who flat out don't feel that white supremacy is bad. They don't even acknowledge it. I mean, as a friendly reminder, Candace Owens, didn't she point out that she felt that abortion and literacy rates and fatherless homes were worse of a threat to the Black community than white supremacy? I mean, but what the issue is, Candace fails to accept, recognize, or realize that the system of racism, white supremacy, created those fundamental economic disparities. So I think that Dr. Frances Cress Welsing puts the blueprint out for us to see the structure of white racism supremacy, and we need to hone in on it to counteract it and use our energy force together in a tactful way to maneuver and navigate and ultimately withstand and come out of it.
And so what I do want everyone to focus on, and if you can, do some homework on Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. You know, in her theory of color confrontation, she argues about, well, not necessarily argues in the sense of nowadays, but she basically wrote about white supremacy and how the superiority stemmed from feeling inadequate and having this whole inferiority complex. And we have to understand how the psychological mindset of white supremacy operates. Like, at the end of the day, if you understand that little statement I just made, you would understand why these people operate the way they do. Because if we're going to tackle white supremacy, especially when we're dealing with the police force, you got to understand this inferiority complex that they have within themselves. That's why they have always been pushing this claim about whiteness is always right and we are the dominant force. You know, we have to understand that it's basic. If you read her theory on color confrontation, you would understand why they have, you know, this mindset. And again, you know, she also talked about how, you know, basically their inability to produce melanin, you know, and generate skin color is basically a deficiency. Whiteness is a deficiency. You know, you got to let that settle in for a minute, you know, and understand it, because, you know, they do tan their skins now. And I'm not saying all, because I have white people in my family. Let's just be very clear. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
we're not
too.
attacking all white people. We're attacking white supremacy. There's a big difference. You know what I'm saying? White supremacy is a mindset and an act. It's not necessarily just the color of your skin. So I know a lot of times we go in on white supremacy and they just, oh, y'all must just hate white people. No, we're talking about white supremacy. Because again, I have white people in my damn family, and I have, you know, again, I'm from Louisiana, so we got Creoles and all this other stuff in my family, and they look white. Okay, if you look at them, you would swear they was white up and down, but they're black as all outdoors. They're black as night. Okay, so again, we just have to understand it, and I think we need to just, if you can, on your own personal time, get to know Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, get to know Dr. Neela Fuller, and all of these other greats, our ancestors who have laid the path for us, and they talk about these issues so we can have an understanding of what we're dealing with. Because if you don't understand white supremacy and racism, you will never be able to fight these people, ever. So I want to get your take on it, ladies, and then we're going to close out.
Quan, Alex, I could go?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm also into believing that we cannot allow others to come in and help us. We have to help each other, one another. The problem we have sometimes, we allow others, outsiders, to come in and dictate what we need, how to police us, how to give a certain amount of money so we can lift up our community. If we go back to the black hole, and we need to just focus on ourselves, like you stated, learn our history so we will not repeat them. Those people are never going to change. And yes, I am talking about the white supremacy. They're not going to change. This has been instilled to them since they've been babies. What we need to do is focus on ourselves and make sure these things stop and voice our opinion, speak up, not just stay quiet, not just to forgive them easily, and to just like, you know what, I have white people in my family as well, but sometimes I have to check them. I have to check them as well. Because if you allow them, they would, if you let them a little inch, they will take a yard. And they'll put you in your place and remind you that you are nobody. Unfortunately, I have experienced that. But I think if we police ourselves, love ourselves, know our history, and speak up when we need to, we will outspeak those that are coons, those that are shucking and jiving. Those are just the small numbers. People like us who are conscious and know what we stand for, we can do it. But we have to stand together. Yes,
absolutely. And go ahead, Alex.
Sorry, yeah, that was really good, Carrie. And Quan, yes, when you say and speak what it is, when it comes to that law and them areas of battle, and when it comes to the religion, we got to stop being so emotional, start being logical, you know what I'm saying? And I don't want to piss anybody off. I need everyone to do their research.
Amen.
And we got to pay attention, because white supremacy is crafty, and it rewrites narratives, okay? So they want to put a white man up in front and keep your mind off the millions and millions and millions of brothers and fathers and uncles that they've murdered, okay? So just do your research, because white supremacy is not going to give you a God. Okay, if they're not gonna give you nothing else. That's all I'm saying, family. So yeah, shout out to Dr. Francis Cresswellson. And yes, if you don't want to read, you can go right on YouTube and audio tape the ISIS papers, chapter by chapter by chapter. Shout out to Scorpio 16. She put me up on game. I'll listen to each chapter back to back to back, and she will break it down. And Dr. Francis Cresswellson talks about being Christian for 40 years. She talked about, you know, how her narrative was sculpted from a young age. And she thought Jesus was the oatmeal man on the oatmeal container. You know what I'm saying? The imagery. So we got to be careful, yo, with white supremacy. And I'm not saying change your understanding of God, just like Dr. John Henrik Clarke taught. Change your conscious image of God.
That's
and
right.
once you understand that, it's your own personal journey. So do the research, do the historical research. You gotta want to be hungry. And I know when we click out of this chat, you know, we go about our lives, and we don't have to be so intense every day, but at least put the work in to discover more about who you are in this system and how you're being treated and how to combat this treatment.
Open your mind, exactly. Open your mind, learn, read.
So I do want to end this again on a positive note. And so it's tragic that we have to discuss these type of topics, because we were such on a high note last session. We were like talking about starting businesses, and then bam, this landed on my desk. And it's just, and it's unfortunate, but I do want us to be encouraged and realize that we do have an opportunity to change this and turn this around. You know, we can fight back. We can take care of our communities. We can do what we need to do as a community. You know, we need to do the research, do our due diligence, understand your enemy, your opponent, your oppressor, know who you're dealing with. You know, this game, this strategy that they've been fighting us for generations and generations, again, this is a well-oiled machine. And at the end of the day, they have this down like clockwork. But when we get our minds together and we start fighting back strategically, both from a political, economical, educational, financial, social level, then we can grab back our communities and take control and take our rightful places. So again, people, I encourage you, I know this is a tragic story, but we wanted to share this story because again, we all three of us see ourselves in this young, beautiful, educated, talented woman by the name of Atatiana Jefferson. Say her name. She's a hashtag right now, but hopefully we don't forget her name and we elevate her, because now she's with the ancestors, and I just want us to elevate her, with her family, support her family, and we continue to fight this fight. We continue to do what it takes to fight and defeat white supremacy. So we thank you. Please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share. If you would like to support the platform, please hit up the Super Chat or PayPal or Cash App. If you want to participate with Sister Cypher on Tuesday and Thursday nights, I will be dropping the email in the chat. So if you want to participate, men, we're calling you out once again. If you want to participate, please hit us up so we can invite you over and get your take on it, because we don't always want it just to be all about us. We want to get feedback. We want that balance. We want that good balance from the feminine and the masculine perspective. So ladies, any last words you want to have before we close out?
Absolutely, men, we need to hear your side of the story, how you feel, how this relates to you. You have loved ones, you have females in your family, so we need to hear from your take. And I want everyone to be safe and check on your neighbors. Don't be afraid to check on your neighbors. Check on your neighbors, your loved one. Continue to do what's best for you and your community.
Yeah. Peace, family. All love. Keep grinding. Love yourself. Love your children. Focus on the next big thing and just stay committed.
Okay, good. So please join us again on Thursday night when we're having another session of Sister Cypher. We love you. Peace, Professor Griff. Please to the chat. Everyone have a good night and sleep well.
Blessings. Good night, everyone.
Peace, everyone.